Hi children of grade 8. I welcome you all for the today's English class. Today in this session we are going to see Unit 7 poem. The title of the poem is When I Set Out for Lyonesse, written by Thomas Hardy from our textbook Honeydew. Children, now let's see about the author Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy was born in England on June 2nd, 1840. When he was 22, Hardy left for London, where he was influenced by the works of Charles Swinburne, Robert Browning, and Charles Darwin. Hardy wrote short stories, poems, and plays for the rest of his life. Children, that's all from the author. Let's see the summary of the poem now. Children, let's see the summary and the introduction of the poem. So, as our title of the poem is When I Set Out for Lyonesse. See the introduction here. As a young apprentice means junior, that is practice people, apprentice architect, British poet and novelist Thomas Hardy once visited a parish to supervise the restoration. Restoration means renovating work of a church. On his return from the parish, people noticed two things about him. One is a new glow in his eyes, next one, and a crumpled piece of paper sticking out of his coat pocket. That paper, it is recorded in one of his biographies, contained the draft of the poem. Children, we are going to read that very poem inspired by a visit to a place which the poet calls it as Lyonesse. That's all from the introduction, children. Let's move on to the poem now. Children, let's see the poem now. When I Set Out for Lyonesse. As we have read in the introduction, the same thing was given in the warm-up, children. As a young apprentice architect, British poet and novelist, Thomas Hardy once visited a parish to supervise the restoration of a church. On his return from the parish, people noticed two things about him. One is a new glow in his eyes, and another one is a crumpled piece of paper sticking out of his coat pocket. That paper, it is recorded in one of his biographies, contained the draft of the poem. So let's read very poem inspired by the visit to a place which the poet called Lyonesse. That's all from the warm-up, children. Let's read the first stanza of the poem. Children, look at the first stanza here. When I set out for Lyonesse, 100 miles away, the rime was on the spray, and starlight lit my lonesomeness when I set out for Lyonesse, 100 miles away. So that's all from the first stanza, children. Children, let's see the explanation of the first stanza now. When I set out for Lyonesse, 100 miles away. Children, here the author says that in the first stanza, he was talking about going toward Lyonesse, 100 miles far away from the place. That is what here he is telling, when I set out for Lyonesse, 100 miles away. And the next line, the rime was on the spray. Rime means frost formed on cold objects by the rapid freezing of water. And spray means leaves. Here the author is telling that it was the winter season. There was frozen cold covered everywhere, even on the leaves. Look at the next line. And starlight lit my lonesomeness. So here His loneliness made him more visible by the starlight. Here, the word lonesomeness means state of feeling lonely. At last, again, when I set out for Lyonesse, 100 miles away. Children, that's all from the first stanza. Let's read on the second stanza now. Children, the second stanza here. Look at the first line. What would bechance at Lyonesse while I should sojourn there? No prophet durst declare, nor did the wisest wizard guess. What would bechance at Lyonesse while I should sojourn there? Let me repeat the second stanza again. What would bechance at Lyonesse while I should sojourn there? No prophet durst declare, nor did the wisest wizard guess. What would bechance at Lyonesse while I should sojourn there? So that's all from the second stanza, children. Children, let's see the explanation of the second stanza now. Children, look at the first line. What would bechance at Lyonesse while I should sojourn there? Here, in these lines, the poet expresses his unsurety about what would happen at Lyonesse. The word sojourn means a temporary stay and bechance means to happen. That's what in the first line. What would bechance at Lyonesse while I should sojourn there? Look at the third line. No prophet durst declare, nor did the wisest wizard guess. Here, the poet says a prophet. Prophet means who tells or predicts about future, or a wizard or the wisest wizard. Wizard means a person who has magical powers. So, the poet says even a prophet or the wisest wizard would fail to predict the experience accurately that what is going to happen in Lyonesse. So, at last, what would bechance? Bechance means to happen at Lyonesse while I should sojourn. Sojourn means temporarily staying there at Lyonesse. Children, that's all from the second stanza. Let's move on to the third stanza now. Children, let's see the third stanza here. When I returned from Lyonesse with magic in my eyes, all marked with mute surmise, my radiance rare and fathomless, when I returned from Lyonesse with magic in my eyes. I'll repeat, children. When I returned from Lyonesse with magic in my eyes, all marked with mute surmise, my radiance ran rare and fathomless, when I returned from Lyonesse with magic in my eyes. Written by Thomas Hardy. That's all from the third stanza, children, and the last stanza too. Let's see the explanation now. Children, let's see the explanation of the third stanza now. Children, look at the third stanza, first line. When I returned from Lyonesse with magic in my eyes. So here, the poet returned from Lyonesse, and the people noticed that there was a magic in his eyes, therefore, all marked with mute surmise. As the people noticed the magic in his eyes, they were all marked with mute. Mute means silence, and surmise means something that is true without having any evidence. Therefore, they were mute, that they couldn't speak anything because it was visible. They didn't need any evidence to prove it, that something had happened to him, because it was visible in his face and eyes. My radiance rare and fathomless. Fathomless means one cannot be understood, and radius rare. That means light and glow that was seen on his eyes cannot be available anywhere. When he returned from Lyonesse with magic in his eyes. Children, that's all from this poem. We have seen 3 stanzas in this poem when I set out for Lyonesse. Children, now let's see the poetic devices from the poem when I set out for Lyonesse. First, let's see the rhyming scheme of the poem. The rhyming scheme of the poem is A, B, B, A, A, B. Let's see the rhyming scheme now. Look at the first line when I set out for Lyonesse. Then next line, away and spray. So first Lyonesse, A, then away and spray, B, B, lonesomeness and Lyonesse. So both end with is sound, so A, A. At last away, so away, spray. So both, all these 3 ends with a A sound, so we have given B. So the rhyming scheme is A, B, B, A, B. Next, moving on to the poetic device. First one, alliteration. Alliteration means starting with the same consonant sound. Look at the second line, 100 miles away. So in the second line, a sound is repeated. And look at the fourth line, and starlight lit my lonesomeness. So light, l sound, lit, l sound, lonesomeness. So all starts with the consonant l sound. For the poetic device, alliteration was used. The second poetic device was enjambment. Here in the first line, look at the first line, when I set out for Lyonesse, 100 miles away. So in the first line, there is no punctuation mark and it continues to the next line. So here the poetic device enjambment was used. And the third poetic device was imagery. Imagery means here the poet shows the image of starlight. So here showing and picturizing the image of starlight here. So the poetic device imagery was used. And at last, personification was used. Here the starlight lit my lonesomeness. So here the starlight lit personifies the loneliness. So the poetic device personification was used. So children, these are the poetic devices that was used in the first stanza of our poem. Let's see the poetic devices which was used in the second stanza. In the second stanza we have alliteration again, repeating of consonant sounds, and the letters starts with the same letters. Children, look at the first line, what would. So it starts with the same consonant sound, and while, what would while. Then the second line, should and sojourn. So it starts with a s consonant sound, and in third line, durst and declare. So durst and declare, durst sound is repeated. And as well as in the fourth line we have wisest and wizard. So verse sound is repeated. So almost we have so many alliteration in this second stanza. So the poetic device alliteration was used. Moving on to the next poetic device is anaphora. Anaphora means repetition of words in the beginning of the lines. Look at the third and fourth line. Here we have no, and fourth line nor. So we have repetition of words in 2 lines. So here the poetic device anaphora was used. Again, the next poetic device is our enjambment. In second stanza, look at the first line. What would be chance at Lyonesse while I should sojourn there? So in the first line, there is no punctuation mark and there is no sparse. And it is continuing to the next line. So the poetic device enjambment was used. As the same, look at the third, fourth, fifth lines. No prophet durst declare, nor did the wisest wizard guess what would be chance at Lyonesse. So here also we cannot see any punctuation mark or pass. So it is continuing into the next line. So here we have poetic device enjambment was used. Children, that's all from the poetic device of the second stanza. Let's see the third stanza and its poetical device now. Children, look at the third stanza. Here also we have alliteration. Look at the second line. With magic in my eyes. So ma sound is repeated. As the same thing here, third line, all marked with mute. So ma sound is repeated. And again in fourth line, radiance and rare. R sound is repeated. So we have poetical device, alliteration in the third stanza also, children. Children, that's all from the poetic device of this poem, When I Set Out for Lyonesse, written by Thomas Hardy.